For most pruning with a homeowner, you're going to need at least two basic tools. One is a pair of bypass pruners. For bigger cuts, you'll want to use some sort of hand saw. We favor folding saws. They click in place and the blade is about that long. And between these two tools, you can get 99% of all your pruning done, especially with roses. The 3Ds, again, are dead, diseased, and damaged wood. So when I look to prune a rose, or any plant for that matter, I automatically start by looking for those three things. And on this rose here, this hybrid tea, Abaye de Cluny, I see there's an example of a dead piece of material. So that's going to come out automatically. So once you've eliminated all of the dead, diseased, or damaged wood, the next thing to think about is pruning for structure. And what we mean by structure is giving the rose a sturdy framework on which to put on its new growth and support the roses that are going to come in the following year. So essentially, we prune ours to have about 4 primary structural canes, and a cane is going to be one of these sturdier, older pieces of wood that you can see. It looks quite different from the newer growth, which is sort of a burgundy color. The older wood, it forms sort of a bark. So what we're looking at here are the main canes of the plant. 1, 2, 3, and this very vigorous new cane forms a 4th cane that I'm actually going to save. You can see that it has that burgundy color, which identifies it as new growth. And you can see also these canes are a bit older. They still have their color, but they've developed some bark on the outside. So we first start out by pruning out any interior pointing material. I'm going to want to clean out the middle and ultimately have it very open. I'm also going to prune. This is the art of rose pruning, really, is pruning to what we call an outside bud. And that is, you can direct the growth of this year's new material by pruning to outside buds. So, for example, just looking at this branch right here, we have this bud. I would consider this in pointing because it's going towards the middle of the plant, or at least the side. This bud here is going to grow out this way if we let it. And that's what we want. We want to develop flowers and branches to grow into spaces where they're not going to crowd each other, cross each other, get in the way, and basically have a better display of flowers in a spot where you're going to be able to see it. The other benefit of clearing out all the material on the inside of the plant is it allows more sunlight and more air to circulate through the middle of the plant, and hence reduces disease, possibility of disease. So that's another reason for doing that. What you don't want to do is come in and leave something like that. We got about 1/2 an inch, maybe 1/3 of an inch left. I really want to take that out fairly close to the cane, this cane, because I'm going to want to keep this cane. I like the structure. It's coming off of the main cane, one of the main canes, and I can see that it has a good branching structure right up here. This branch, I think, is extraneous, so we'll take that out. And that leaves we're beginning to see the beginning of the structure, at least on this side. You always want to put the sharp cutting blade portion of the pruner, I'll say down in this instance, but depending on where you are pruning, you basically want the sharp blade to be cutting against the part of the plant that you're leaving. So here I have the holding blade and the cutting blade. I want the cutting blade down because when the pruners come together, it's going to be touching the part of the plant that I'm leaving. The reason being, if you did it the opposite way, first of all, it leaves a gap. You're not actually cutting exactly where you want to. And this is not the cutting blade, so it tends to crush the plant material a little bit, as opposed to a clean cut. So for a bud like that, or a cut like this, I would come in just like that, cut it off, and there we have our final cut on this little branch right here. So by pruning moderately, pruning down to thicker wood, you're going to direct that same amount of energy into fewer buds, and hence have stronger canes, bigger flowers, and a better show. With roses, you really want to focus on renewing old canes. Once older canes, such as these, become unproductive or sort of tire out, when the plant gives you a nice strong structural cane like this, you really want to think about keeping that, cutting it fairly low. I want to, most of the main canes on this plant are cut fairly low, meaning 6 inches from the ground. So that cane is now going to become, hopefully, a new structural cane. It's going to put out some growth this a ways, and perhaps next year, I don't want to do it just yet, but next year when this one becomes stronger and this one presumably it is older and presumably more tired, we can take this entire cane out back to the base and then develop this as the new structural cane, filling up this half of the plant. And the last thing to do is look for any remaining dead, diseased, or damaged pieces of material, clean up cuts, and there you go.